morning, Mr. Aiello. I'm Sonia from 21st Century Business Herald. It's my great honor to doing this interview with you today. So let's begin. The first question is about this conference at the GEF Hong Kong. I heard that this is the first time for the GEF to be held in Hong Kong. So what's your consideration for this? Why in Hong Kong this time?
So thank you. It's great to be here. The Greenwich Economic Forum was started 6 years ago in Greenwich, Connecticut, which is right outside of New York City. And we have an annual conference in the fall. And one of the things that we noticed as we were doing the conference was there was a lot of interest coming from Asia, especially mainland China. And I attribute that to a couple of things. One is we're very fortunate to be able to have some of the top thought leaders in hedge fund, private equity, venture capital, the alternative investment space, which is where we focus. And a lot of the mainland Chinese finance people are very fascinated by the people that we have there, people like Ray Dalio and Paul Tudor Jones and Steve Case and so forth. And they're kind of magnets for interest not only across the country but across the world. Greenwich also has a sister city relationship with Hangzhou. And as a result, we go to Hangzhou, the Hangzhou folks come here, they have a conference, a very good conference called the Westlake Conference, which we've gone to quite a number of times. And so when the opportunity presented itself to come with the reopening of China and Asia, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange said, would you like to do an event in Hong Kong? And they said that we'll host it at our beautiful building called Connect Hall. And we said, absolutely, we'd love to do it. We think the timing is great. We have a strong following, a lot of connectivity with Asia, especially with China and Hong Kong. And so we said we would love to do it, and that's why we're here.
And I know that you have been to Hong Kong for several times. So what's your impression of Hong Kong?
Yeah, it seems, the city seems vibrant. Mm-hmm. People are very welcoming to ourselves and everyone that we've run into. I think that there is a lot of opportunity as the world changes, whether it's the economic changes, the geopolitical changes, for Hong Kong to really stand out in a very positive way and be a bridge to China and kind of act in that intermediary role.
So you have mentioned that we are facing a lot of uncertainties, the complex environment. So do you think the global financial status of Hong Kong is still stable or maybe affected by something?
Yeah. No, I think it's very stable. I mean, traditionally, Hong Kong is the financial center for APAC, and it's certainly with London and New York in the top 3 of the world. Places like Tokyo and Singapore have a role, and they're very, very important as well. They might be more focused, though, in certain areas like technology and other kind of industrial or professional services sorts of things. So there's a place for all of these cities. I think Hong Kong will continue to be probably the dominant overall financial services center for APAC.
So let's talk something more about the GEF. And you are the co-founder of GEF. And I want to know what's the first intention of the establishment of the GEF, and comparing to other forums or conferences, what is the distinguished characteristics of GEF?
Yeah. Great, that's a great question. We are a thought leadership conference. So what we do is we try to bring the best minds in finance, and sometimes it could be people from Asia, it's from the United States, it's from Europe, Australia. We have all over the world, and we do it in a setting that allows for a lot of interaction. In fact, most of our settings are kind of medium-sized, I would say, between 200 and 400 people. And so when you're in a big room with that number of people, you can interact. If there's ever someone that you want to talk to, you can walk up to them and have a conversation. We don't do parallel path sort of activities where you fear you're missing out, FOMO. We've been very fortunate in being able to attract a lot of investors as well as managers. So the peer-to-peer element, GPLP, is really, really strong and distinctive. And so we think the combination of having a very peer-to-peer audience that's there, plus our sort of intimacy size and our fantastic speakers, makes us very unique.
Intimacy, the closeness.
Yeah. I mean, literally, if you want to speak to Mark Mobius, you just walk up and introduce yourself, and he'll be delighted to speak with you. And that's pretty much true of every single person that we have there, from the sort of the typical executive to some of the most famous people that we have. They're very accessible, and I think are venues and our style affords that opportunity for people who attend.
Thank you for sharing about the GEF. Maybe we could talk something about the U.S. economy.
Sure.
We know that the banking crisis is raising much concern this year. So how do we view the maybe the downward pressure or the spillover risk of the U.S. economy this year?
So you're talking about the regional bank crisis that we're talking about?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty contained. I mean, there were a couple of banks that were not properly managed from an asset liability perspective. And if you look broadly across the industry, the banking system is very strong. And so we think that those were sort of localized sort of situations. I think more broadly, the economy is pretty resilient. I mean, you know, there's clearly a need for inflation to come down. The Federal Reserve action of increasing rates pretty aggressively has really worked. I mean, there is downward pressure on prices significantly, especially in energy. So I think this whole notion of could it be a soft landing, there has been a lot of doubt. I think there's a good chance it could be a soft landing and not have, certainly not have a recession anywhere near what it was in the global financial crisis. It might be a little bit bumpier, but I think there's a good chance it could be pretty smooth and growth will kick back in pretty soon.
Thank you. And my next question is about China. So you have mentioned China before. So how do you view the importance of the reopening of China and especially the economic growth of China this year?
Yeah, I think it's very important. And you know, China is an integral part of the global trade system, the financial system, and so a healthy China is good for the world. I think that there's going to be more activity to get, I think, consumers to spend in China. There is a lot of, I think, people have most of their wealth in their homes, and so they're going to want to diversify that. But when they diversify that, that opens the door to other financial products, not only in China but around the world. So, but the relationship to the world of China to the world is critical. I do think that the government of China has done a good job of spreading out across the world and having you know, multiple relationships, largely economic, that have been beneficial. The tricky thing, of course, is with geopolitics and what's happening in Ukraine and that sort of thing, and that remains to be seen what happens, and that's where there could be a lot of risk.
Yes. And my next question is about the new economy, like the digital economy, the Web3, the green economy. And we know that GEF Hong Kong is also inviting some companies of this kind to attend.
Yeah.
So how do you see the development of this kind of new economy?
We've had some wonderful firms like OKG and others come to our conference that are leaders in that space. We've had other technology firms that are more on the private equity side in the past and from other conferences. And you know, technology is a part of all of our lives. On the Web3 side, which is basically sort of the digital assets, there's a lot of great use for blockchain and the efficiencies and the independence that affords, but I think it's pretty unclear what all the use cases are. So those use cases need to be defined, and when those are defined, I think there'll be even more opportunity and even greater interest once that happens. So I think we have to sort of sit tight and see what happens over the next few years and see what those use cases look like.
Thank you. And I've got my last question is about GEF. GEF will be held in Greenwich in October, right?
Yes, correct.
Do you want to do some preview for this conference for us?
We're going to have some wonderful top speakers again, including Ray Dalio, as well as some of the top private equity and private credit leaders. We're very lucky in that we have people tending to come again and again. We always want to open the doors to new people, but we're lucky to have a number of folks that have been at the conference before that really get a lot out of it and want to come. I think we'll probably be very fortunate and probably selling out like we have in the past. We're going to have great coverage by hopefully yourselves and Bloomberg and others, and it's going to be 2.5 days. We'll have 2 days in person and a half day digital. So the interest level has been really strong. We're getting corporate partners and media as well as investors that are already signing up. So we're very excited to be doing it again for our 6th time this year in October. And it's October 3rd, 4th, and 5th.